Welcome to the Healing Lifestyle Podcast, a sacred space for living, healing, and ascension. I'm your host, Shonda Domingo, Ancestral Medium, Movement Healer, and founder of Domingo Training. Here we explore mind, body, and spirit practices for wholeness and ascension through meditations, rituals, ancestral connection, and holistic living. Take a breath, take a moment, let's begin. What's up, everybody? Shonda here. Welcome to the Healing Lifestyle Podcast. I am so excited because this week I'm getting cozy and kicking it with my girl, my teacher, my colleague, my friend, Ellenie Cruz Hampton. So listen, I'm going to try to run this beat back on this woman right here resume. But Ellenie is a doula, a midwife. She is an ascending herbalist. I call her like she's the OG herbalist for me in my world. Okay, she is the founder and primary educator for the Atabe School of Healing. I feel like cultural healing thing. I knew I was gonna miss a word. All right.
It's a long.
But it's beautiful though. But it's beautiful. And she is an educator. She is a teacher. She is an artist. She is a Reiki master. She does energy work, body work. Like I always say, Elle is that girl. Okay. I know. Don't hide, sis. Don't hide.
Don't hide.
Right. So I'm just excited. I asked her to come on today's episode because we're kind of laying the foundation of the podcast. We spinning the block, running that beat back to really build on what it is we're talking about and discussing. And so last week I shared my story of how I found myself into being an ancestral medium and a movement healer. And this week, I really want to talk about what does it mean to heal through ancestral connection and just kind of discuss how that happens organically for some people, how you can interweave that into your life. And I was blessed enough to take a class, a herbal class with Ellenie, and she said something that stuck with me. And I was like, oh, she got to come talk about this some more. So before her class, Elle has an altar and we acknowledged our ancestors. And she said, your body is the first altar. You can always honor and acknowledge them that way. And I was like, okay, you got to come and talk. Because a lot of people that listen to this podcast, they're curious. Like, how do I work with my ancestors? What if I don't know everybody? What does that look like? How do I build my altar? So I wanted us to have this conversation of ancestral connection and that it can look like whatever it needs to look like for you, and the organic, loving, and proper ways to begin to do that in your healing lifestyle.
Girl. Yes. Okay. There's so many things flowing through my mind right now because I didn't think that was the seed from the class we were going to water today. And also because it is, I have to say that this notion of ancestorship really came into my perspective, peripheral vision, and then my focus when I moved to New Orleans. So a lot of people know I'm not from here. I always tell people I'm not from here, and people think I'm from here, and I'm like, no, I respect New Orleans too much to ever say I'm from here. But when I did move here, I started in maybe my second or third year here. I did a doula training with Nicole Deggins, and that's a whole nother story. But I'm gonna come back to that. I did a doula training with Nicole Deggins, and that's where I first really started learning about my lineage, my maternal lineage. And then there was another person I met who I felt like was very integral when we talk about ancestors to my spiritual journey, which was Soraya Jean-Louis. So she is a Haitian, I think New York born, but she might have been born in Haiti. Sorry, Soraya, my bad. But she's a Haitian artist living in New Orleans and a mother. And she's just an amazing, dope human being. And the first thing I ever heard her say about ancestorship was that we should be preparing ourselves to be ancestors one day. And I was just like, yes. And I want to be an amazing ancestor. And I want to be called on. And I want people to call on me for this, this, and this. So in hearing her say that, it made me be more intentional about how I'm living my life, one. knowing that one day I will be somebody's ancestor. And that doesn't have to be just bloodline ancestor, but I'm going to be ancestor to many different people. And two, this notion of like, who am I, reverencing as my ancestors? What is my relationship with my ancestors? And why don't I have one? At that time, I felt like I didn't have one. And then to go back to the doula training, in Nicole Dagan's doula training, the first thing she makes us do is call the names of our maternal lineage. And I was real offended because I couldn't call nobody but my mama and my grandmother. And then I realized I don't even know my grandmother's first name. She's just Abuela. Like, I didn't know her name. If she were to pass, I couldn't call on her. So I called my mom and I said, Mom, what is your grandmother's name? Before I asked her for her mom's name. And she told me her name was Herminia. And as soon as she told me her name, I felt like, I remember being in the car, I felt like I just like was under a waterfall. Like all this like memory and information just kind of felt like it came flooding back to me. And in that moment, it really like changed my life. Like it changed the whole like trajectory of my life. I had already been on a journey, but that made it more clear to like really, really connect into birth work. And because I got so connected into birth work, this was 2015. Because I got so connected into birth work and I did go on this path of midwifery, I was essentially able to save my life and my daughter's life by becoming a midwife. So in hindsight, that the ancestors really do be looking out, but you have to connect to them. You have to know them. If I didn't know her name, I may have never gotten the information I've gotten. I may have never stepped into birth work and into doulaship as seriously as I did. I may have never connected with the circles of people that I connected with that all led me to this point of becoming a midwife and then having this crazy medically complex pregnancy. And now I'm like, I literally am the only one who can save me because nobody I know has dealt with something like this. So it was so intense. And I'm not even sure if that answers your question, but I think the first thing for me was thinking about myself as an ancestor and then somebody else coming in and saying like, who are your people? And then me realizing, I don't know. Beyond my grandmother, I don't know who my people are. And I had to find out.
But I think what you said was really beautiful for people to remember too. Like, your ancestor doesn't necessarily always have to be your bloodline. It can be someone that you had a connection with, someone that you look up to, right? And someone who has the medicine of what you think you need for that moment in your life. And when I say medicine, I mean like the characteristics, the integrity,
the joy sometimes.
Right? Okay, that you are looking to bring out in yourself and connecting to them, talking to them, praying to them, giving them offerings is how you can begin to forge this connection and receive that assistance. So I think it's beautiful. That I'm like, I never thought about that. Like, I need to, I'm going to be like, and I always tell my boys, like, oh, y'all going to put me on the altar one day, but I never think about living my life as like preparing myself to be like a bomb ancestor. I'm like, dang, that accountability hits
way
a lot differently. For sure.
Yeah.
And I also like how you brought it back to, let me just ask for my like great grandmother, because something similar happened to me with my uncle, because my mom I knew my grandparents passed away when I was maybe 4 or younger, but I never knew like that next step, and both of my grandfathers were passed away before I was even born. And it wasn't until a couple months ago I just would say, I would ask for names and I would hear like Celine. Like I remember saying Celeste. I started saying Celeste because I was trying to go with what I was hearing. And I asked my uncle, I was like, what is your grandmother's name? And
Please tell me.
And he was like, Celine. And I was like, oh, I was so close. Like, and then he was like, oh, and then he was like, my other grandmother's name was Eleanor. And I was like, now we get this information. So I definitely think it helps, even if you don't have this personal bond or you never knew them, at least try to find out their names. Because I agree, like as soon as I learned their name, I felt like I could feel their presence with me, or just this extra support that began to move with me whenever I would speak their names or just acknowledge them with that kind of reverence.
Absolutely. I forget, there's like a graphic about like how many people it took to like make sure you got here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so like if we go back to our parents, that's 2 people, but then that's 2 sets of grandparents, so that's 4 people, so that's what, 6?
Mm-hmm.
And then your great grandparents, and so there's this math of like, no, how many people can you actually walk in a room with? You know, how many, like if I am paying reverence to my ancestors on a daily basis, how many people am I leaving the house with every day because I called them to walk with me? You know, like now I got a whole squad, I got a whole gang that y'all don't see, but I know ain't nothing happened to me because all my people here. And that means my awareness and my perception is super sharp because I got all these people with me looking out for me.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean that they also don't play tricks sometimes. And you know, because they have, it's almost like they keep their character, you know?
They still them.
They're still them. Very much them.
They're still them.
So you got to be very clear. I'm calling you here for benevolence and guidance and protection, and don't come over here playing. Like, you have to be clear with them. Like,
it's still a relationship.
It's still a relationship, and you still have to put up boundaries around, like, because sometimes you gotta tell your ancestors, no, I'm not doing that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's still, they don't become your God. No. It literally is a relationship where you are healing. For me, so there's a lot of healing, right? So it's like you're healing the things that they left behind that still needs to be cared for and tended to, and you're also receiving the gifts that they left behind that they either knew about or didn't know about that they passed down to you. So it's a relationship, just like if your parents were still living, you still gonna have boundaries with your parents. Yeah. Right? So it's that same type of relationship, even in spirit. Like, I remember my mom loves toast. Both of my parents are deceased. And I was walking in the kitchen one day and a loaf of bread just like fell off the fridge. And I was like, no, sis, I'm not making toast this morning. Yes, you are. I was like, you see me over here. Like, I remember I was already having like a rough morning. I was like, you see me over here upset and in my, like, going through my own thing, and you gonna knock this? I remember being so upset.
Because put the toast on the altar so I can help you.
Exactly, right. And look, and I just was so mad. I was like, well, I'm not making no toast. But yeah, it's about having no, and I remember in retrospect, I was like, she was trying to be funny because that's what she used to do when she was living. I would call her with a light prices, and she'd be like, girl, Walgreens got stockings on sale. So they consistent.
What I'm gonna do with these stockings?
Listen, Linda, we don't know. But I remember, like, that's so her in retrospect. So it's about communicating with them why you're calling them in and what do you need. So that's like that base, that foundation for when you hear people say working with your ancestors, it's still a relationship. You don't just call on them when you need something, because they also don't have to show up for you. They could also be like, no, I'm not doing that. So it really is a relationship and being able to express and show gratitude, right? Mm-hmm. So a lot of people, I've been getting a lot of questions about when you're making an altar out of honor and reverence for your ancestor. Can you give us some little one-on-one?
Yeah. So I also, what I was saying earlier with Soraya is that I think she's the first person I also heard say that you are your first altar. And when I heard her say that, Ascension Art started with body adornments. And I started calling them adornments because of her language around your body being your first altar. And I'm like, okay, well, we're going to adorn the altar. So in that perspective, you don't have to set up an altar in your home. I also tell people, like, if you look around your parents' home, you'll see many altars. You may not know they were altars, but they're altars. An altar is just a place that is meant to catch your attention, right? So if you think about yourself as an altar, what attention are you catching with your body? What intentionality or what are you putting on your body intentionally to draw in certain energies, right? Whether that's the energies of your ancestors to surround you and protect you, or whether that is something that you're trying to attract to yourself, abundance or money or joy or whatever it is, right? So that's the one thing. So your body is your first altar. You can adorn yourself with jewelry, with Florida water, with perfumes, oils. When you bathe, that's a form of adornment. Adornment as you're cleansing yourself. So thinking about how and with what you're cleaning yourself with, using different herbal products on your body, butters, all of those things. And then your clothing is a form of adornment as well, right? So if you're intentional about what you're putting on your body, how you're looking, and things like that, like all of that can be intentional and can be ways to call in your ancestors. Some may be more obvious, like wearing my grandmother's heels that my mom inherited, and now that I've inherited them, right? That could be something really obvious. Not just throwing them on, but throwing them on with the gratitude that your ancestor has walked in them and now you get to walk in them, right? And gratitude for her journey leading to your mother's journey, leading to your journey, and being grateful for your existence in that way. Those things may be a little bit more obvious because there was ownership involved. But then there are ways to do it where it's just like, I'm thinking about, my great grandmother or my dad, and I know his favorite color was whatever it was, or I would never do this, but my dad, like, oh my God, my dad. My dad is a character, y'all. Like, oh my God, he is such a character, like such a, like, very much like a jokester, a trickster energy. And he was dishonorably discharged from the military, and I'm just like, how much of this can I share? That's why I'm like hesitating and pausing, because I'm like, Dad, you good? Like, I can go ahead and talk. Okay, great. He was dishonorably discharged from the military, but he still wore like a lot of patriotic stuff. But he also was a huge conspiracy theorist. So I'm like, if I wanted to be, I feel like I got my conspiracy theorist stuff from him. So sometimes I honor him by being like, my daddy was a conspiracy theorist and he passed that down to conspiracy. So I'm gonna get into conspiracy right now. You could judge me if you want, but I got it from my daddy, and that's part of who I am. So accepting yourself is also part of honoring your ancestors.
Yes.
Accepting yourself, accepting the things that they may have came with. And then if I was going to like wear something patriotic, that's not in my character, right? But if I was wearing it for my father, I could do that. And I'm just giving like a real example. I wouldn't do that. Anyway. So yeah, that's the first thing. And then there's the building of an altar in your home, which is more of a personal practice. Both are personal practices, but it's a more intentional practice that you're not carrying physical objects out of the house with you in a way that, like, wearing something on your body or something like that. It's a practice that also asks for more presentness, because you're sitting in front of an altar. You have whatever on your altar calls for, it to be on the altar. Whether that's your ancestor saying, I need this Bible on here, or I need, a cigar, or whatever it was that your ancestor asked for, some coffee or whatever. But when you go and sit with your altar, it's kind of a meditative practice, or even like a prayer in a sense. So it just depends on what feels good for you. And sometimes it might not feel good. The first time I set up an ancestor altar with my husband and our ancestors on one altar, boy, I got to my altar and I was boo-hooing. I think that was our first altar, like real ancestor altar with the pictures and everything. And I was boo-hooing, and I was like, oh my God, why is this so hard? Why is this happening? And I think it was just my I don't even know if I had pictures up there yet. I think I just wrote their names on a piece of paper because I don't even remember if my paternal grandparents had passed yet. Because I feel like they passed when we moved into the next home, but I'm not sure. But all I know is I had some names on a paper and I was sobbing on the floor. But it's a practice that calls for more presence and more patience because you're kind of tapping into an energy. And ideally, you would do it in the morning or in the evening before you leave your house or when you come home. And just paying honor and respect in that space. Asking for protection or whatever it is in that space. And yeah, altars look different for everybody. So
Absolutely.
I don't even know if you want me to get into like what an altar should look like. Because it can look
but
different.
I think you said it perfectly though. Like it really is whatever you feel called to do. Like you know, if you even go Google or Chat GPT, whatever feels good to you, right? Like you might hear people say like, oh, you get make sure it's clean and, have you can do a white cloth if you want to, or a glass of water as an invitation. And then from there, it's like whatever you feel led to do, whether it's like my daddy used to love orange slices. So if I'm putting orange slices out for my daddy, my mom used to love like the little pedophores from the bakery. So for her birthday, I might go buy like a pedophore and you can light a candle, sing happy birthday. But I do agree, it's very what you feel called to, and it has to be taken seriously with that respect because it is a form of meditation and of prayer because it's not just like, can y'all help me? It's it is a relationship. So it's like really almost like still you're treating it like you still have them physically with you. And so it's as if you were going over to their house, And I always like to say, this came up in another interview I was doing, and I was like, if you think about it, it's like having a guest room at your house. So it's like, how would you want your family member to feel if you was like setting up the guest room for them? Like you want it to be clean. You want to maybe have some little accent stuff that they like. You want it to smell good. So just letting that part of your heart lead, however you're setting it up. Because we always had a guest room in our house, and my mom used to always. I remember just watching my mom get these really particular things. She always wanted it to be like really nice for whoever was coming over, and she always remembered like what people's favorite snacks were. Like my daddy's friends used to like beer, but he had two close friends who like two different kinds of beer. And whenever my dad didn't drink beer, but whenever the beer was on sale, she would go buy it. And she'd be like, I'm just gonna keep this in the fridge, so
just in case,
like making sure they good. So
things like that.
So I think when I think about the altar and kind of what it represents when it comes to the relationship is very like having this guest room space, like in your home or your ancestors. And I think going into that meditative and that prayer part of it is really awesome because that is how you work with your ancestors. That is how you forge that relationship. Like, y'all, I'm going through this. Like, anybody have any wisdom, any guidance? And then you get to sit in this meditative state and you begin to trust what you hear, or then the phone might ring, or then the next day you go meet somebody and they start lining all the teams up for you. Like that's been my experience. When do you feel like when you started setting up your altar space and like honoring your ancestors, what is like off the top of your head some of the ways you feel like they showed you they were showing up for you?
You got to ask the question again.
I got you.
And please remember it because something funny happened today. There was a guy that came to my house today, and apparently he's been out of Louisiana for the last 25 years. He's 78. His name was Leon Sheridan, and he is looking for some guy named Jeffrey. He's like, Jeffrey used to live in that yellow house over there. But like, I was outside watering my garden, and he was like, hey! And just like pulled up on me, like I'm in my garden in the front yard, and I'm like, what's up? Like, what you want? Like, what you calling me for? And he just, started talking, and he's chatting, and he was like, I'm 78. The guy looks young, he looks fit. And I was like, let me go get my husband real quick because he need to see that you 78. I always be messing with my husband. I'm like, I want him to be healthy for a long time. You know, I want to be sane mind. I'm like, this man is pretty sane, it seems like. Seemingly, you know. But he kept saying, listen to me good. And he you could tell he was like Creole, like old school, because just like the accent, I can't even tell y'all the accent, but like if y'all see the old school like stereotypical New Orleans accents, like that's how he was talking. And he just kept saying, listen to me good, and then he kept saying stuff about his children and about New Orleans and about Marrero and all these different things. And he stayed maybe like 45 minutes. Right?
Oh wow!
Yeah, to the point that I brought my baby outside because I was just like, I can't leave her inside. So
Here we are.
And the reason why I was like, I have to stop and I can't even answer this question is because it was really like, is this my daddy? Like just like coming through and being like, I'm coming with, because that's how my dad would be. He would just stop and talk to anybody. And he would just talk and talk and talk and befriend anybody. And then at the same time, he would have this like seriousness, then he go back to joking, then real serious, then go back to joking. And I'm just like looking at the man and I just can't like help but like feel my dad's presence, you know? So I'm just like eating it up on the porch because after I tell my husband to come outside, he's mostly talking to my husband and I'm just watching the interaction. And I'm like, if my husband, I don't think ever got to meet my dad in person, but I'm like, he's meeting my dad in person right now. Because this guy, because this guy is wild. All that to say, I did not hear your question.
But that answered the question.
Yeah.
Because that's literally what I asked. Like, how do you feel like you can see your ancestors show up for you once you forge that connection? Yes. And that's a beautiful way of like showing how they can they'll send somebody. Yeah. Like sometimes it might be like my daddy used to sing me, my dad loved Sam Cooke. Like, loves him. When he was singing, he sounded like Blue from the Temptations. Like his voice was mad deep. So every time I hear like the Temptations Christmas song, I always think about my daddy. Bryson. And we would ride in the car. He always put his hand on my leg, and he just be singing his life away. And there was a song by Sam Cooke with, I forgot the name of it. Like I think it's called like "What a Wonderful World This Would Be." But he'll be like, "Don't know much about history," but it's not like a common. It's not like change gonna come, you know. Right. And so I started having these like whenever I would be having like these really low days, I would go somewhere, and all of a sudden on the radio, I would literally hear that song, and I'd be like. And I remember we were at the garden, and I was just telling Rue, just from talking. Rue is another instructor at the 24 Karat Garden. Shout out to Material Institute where I met Elle. And I was like, yeah, my daddy used to sing this song. And Angel had like Toni Jones playing, like super conscious of affirmation music. And then the Sam Cooke song came on. And I was like, hi, Dad. Don't make me cry. I'm just over here trying to plant these flowers. But they'll show up for you, just letting you know that, you know, hey, I'm here. Like, I know it may not feel like I'm here, but I'm here. Like, I'm not missing nothing. Like, I'm here. Yeah. And they'll save you. And you'll be able to know. Like, I remember being at a concert, and me and my husband had like VIP tickets like every night to this concert. And the last night we didn't get VIP tickets. So you know me, I'm like,
where my VIP ticket? Like, what you mean?
Now you gonna put me in G-pop? Like,
we can't have G-pop now.
Like,
I'm spoiled.
Exactly.
Don't make me go back.
I was like, the betrayal. I'm just kidding. And then like we got home, and I remember just kind of like, you know, you'd be on Instagram scrolling. I remember there was like someone who we're not in relationship anymore. Like we don't speak to each other anymore. And they were there in the VIP like section.
Oh, that's funny.
And I remember being like, they were like, no, you're not even about to. No.
Because y'all don't talk no more.
Y'all don't talk no more. Like you don't even need that interaction right now. Just go enjoy the show from up there. You'll be fine. Like you'll be fine. But I remember in that moment being like, yo,
save you from an interaction you didn't want.
that I did not feel like having. Yeah, exactly. And I was like, and I remember like putting down my phone and going to the altar and being like, I appreciate y'all.
Mm-hmm.
And I could just feel everybody being like, you're welcome. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So they will show up for you, show out for you, and really that protection, like protect you from just unnecessary things.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yes. I know.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about when my dad first passed. I had an estranged relationship with my dad for about 15 years. So between like around 13, 14, 15 and like 28, 29, like I didn't talk to my dad at all. I don't think my dad knew very much about me or my life. But like we didn't communicate. We just didn't. I think I seen him maybe once on a trip where I was visiting back in Delaware, and he looked completely different. But I was like, I saw him and I was like, I think that's my dad. I'm pretty sure that's my dad. And he was we're driving on the highway. It was like a glimpse. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure that was my dad. And why does he have a ponytail in the back of his head? Like, what is he doing? What? But the songs, I remember the songs from when I was little that he leaned on, and it was "Don't Worry, Be Happy." Like my dad was a very troubled man, very, very troubled. But he would always sing and also listen to "Don't Worry, Be Happy." And there's another one that's escaping me right now. Maybe it'll come back later. And when he passed, I like immediately understood like why things happened the way that they did, and I immediately was like, he did what he needed to do. Like. My dad was in an incredible amount of pain. And I think I was the only one when he had passed who really like understood that, understood the relief that he had experienced. Because he was very troubled, and I talked to him a lot in his final like years. So in that, just remembering now when like I'm stressed, that song comes in my head. Like it's not even playing. It's just like, don't worry, be happy. And I'm like, oh, okay. And granted, it's not always that simple. But ever since that's been like chiming in and like it's in the frequency of my brain, right? So ever since that's been in the frequency of my brain much more often, it's been so much easier to access gratitude. And then to access from gratitude, access peace. And then from peace, then to access joy. Because I feel like a lot of us, we feel troubled sometimes. And then we don't have that state of peace. And then we don't have that state of joy. And then we enter these states of like deprivation where we aren't having joy. We aren't having pleasure. We're miserable. We're anxious. We're depressed. And being able, for me at least, to work with my dad's medicine in that way, knowing how troubled he was, knowing how important that song was for him, has like changed the frequency so that I can get to gratitude a little faster, so that then I can get to peace a little faster, so then I can get to joy a little faster. But you have to like be mindful of like, where is this coming from? And I get to experience a level of gratitude and a level of peace and a level of joy that my dad didn't get to experience. Right. So then it's also that acknowledging that and staying in the gratitude, because my dad didn't get to. I had trouble in my life too, but like ideally every generation would do a little better. Right. So like just from one song, getting all of that medicine has been like an amazing thing.
I love that. And it makes me think about like when we talk about when we begin to heal and receive that medicine, it goes back like down into our lineage, and our ancestors received that. Our ancestors received that energy, and that's another way we get to fortify that relationship with them and how they show gratitude to us for freeing them of those things. And so it's like when you start working on yourself, when you start, understanding your triggers and your wounds, and you do the work to really break yourself free and free yourself, that healing energy, it ripples back into your bloodline, and even those that come after you. They don't have to come with the same heaviness, because now you sent medicine ahead of you, and you sent medicine back down the line.
Yep.
And so the love hits on another level, because also you don't have to do that.
Yeah.
And so when we talk about ancestral connection, it truly is a healing experience that we get to have as a part of being people on a healing journey, and being in this process of healing and still balancing day-to-day life. We don't have that. The ancestral connection part shows we don't have to do it alone, that we're not in it alone, and that there's medicine in all types of shapes and forms waiting for us, and working with our ancestors is definitely one of them, for sure. Yes, absolutely. Yes. Is there anything you want to leave everybody with?
I don't know. I think this is my dad again coming through. It's just like, don't take it too seriously.
Yeah.
Just do your best. Like, back to like like preparing yourself to be an ancestor, but just like do the best that you can, and like be benevolent in living, right? And when you're just starting to call on your ancestors, if you don't know their names, for me, my maternal lineage stopped at my great grandmother, which her name is Herminia. She was an orphan. Her husband was an orphan, so like we don't have any other information after that. So you can always say, I'm calling in all of my benevolent ancestors. And if you don't know any of their names, if you don't know your biological parents, you can still call in your non-biological family, or you can call in your bloodline relatives who are benevolent spirits. That way you're not calling in any energies or any darkness that you're not, willing to work with and not wanting to work with. Because even though this practice of connecting with your ancestors is not witchcraft, it's not witchcraft. And even though it's not witchcraft, like you still want to make sure that whatever you're calling in is good energy, is good. Whoever is ready to support you is ready to support you in a good way. Because a lot of the times, I feel like, especially being Black and brown and people of color, it's like
we can call in that ancestor who didn't go do the work,
who didn't heal,
right?
Who never got the apology that they wanted to get, who was severely, harmed.
Yeah.
Sometimes those energies come back and they're still angry. So maybe it's not time to call them in yet.
Yeah.
It's not when you're starting out.
Yeah.
Not when you're starting out, So absolutely, don't take yourself too seriously. Call in the good ones, the ones who's ready to be benevolent and do some good light work. And then just start there.
No, that's that part.
Yeah,
that's beautiful. I think, remember, benevolence.
Yeah,
I always say benevolent ancestors coming in to help me on my healing journey for my highest good. Yes.
Wait, one last thing.
No, go for it. Yes.
Water.
Yes.
Water. Y'all see in the movies how they be like, I'm pouring this out for my real ones, or because anybody can be an ancestor, and your friends might be your ancestors. Hopefully, you don't have friends with ancestors, but we lose people all the time. So like water. I feel like the stereotype is liquor, but it's not really a stereotype. But like, if you can't afford liquor, water. If you can get spring water, the good water, cool, get that. If you can't, use what you got. Use what you got. It's just a medium to facilitate the movement of spirit. So water, yeah, just use the water. You don't have to be in a bowl. You can go pour it on a plant. You can go pour it on the ground outside. But if you want to pour it in a pretty bowl on your altar, you can.
Yep. It's about giving thanks and creating that openness, that invitation.
Yeah. I'm done.
Booyah. Listen, I'm like, give the nuggets. I'm here for it. I'm here for it. I'm here for it.
The water is just, the water is the most important thing. If you are going to do something, and you don't know what to do, but you need to have a focal point, water is a great medium.
Absolutely. All right, y'all. Thank you, Elle. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Don't worry, I'm going to bring her back in May because I want her to come and talk about her motherhood journey.
That's
as well,
be a crazy
with healing as a listen, Linda, and we're gonna be here for it. Okay, so y'all, thank y'all so much. Remember to stay connected. You can go to @Domingo Training on social media, www.domingotraining.com. If you ever want to book an ancestral reading or any type of service. And Elle, where can people find you?
Y'all can find me on Instagram at Ascension_art. Ascension is spelled ASC3NSION_ART. Also ascensionart.com, again with the 3 as the E in Ascension. And if you need to ask me questions directly, info@ascensionart.com. But Instagram is fine.
Awesome. All right. Stay connected with Elle because I know she got courses and classes and all the things coming up. And again, she got it all, y'all.
If you want to learn herbalism, we're doing in-person trainings in New Orleans. It is definitely encompassing both the spiritual side of herbalism, the very connected, like hands-on approach to herbalism, and also some clinically, like sciencey things as well. All of it. We're gonna get all of it.
Good. We've been pressing her about a course, so now I'm excited.
Yeah. Gonna happen.
Yes. All right, y'all. Keep going, keep growing, keep healing, and then see y'all next time. Thank you for joining me on the Healing Lifestyle Podcast. May today's reflections support your healing, your ascension, and your wholeness. To deepen your journey, book an ancestral reading or explore my new ebook guide, Chakra Wellness. This gives you the foundation for healing with crystals, herbs, and movement. Visit domingotraining.com or connect with me on social media @Domingo Training. Until next time, keep going, keep growing, keep healing.